I had.
Right.
So I haven't done the other ones yet, but maybe if I pick up that new box set, I'll do Jason X and Jason Goes to Hell. I've heard they've had some pretty crazy sequences. I imagine if he directed some of the gore in that some of the effects work is probably pretty decent.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty good.
But even just the weird stuff of her like fingering his like porthole,
and they do the lube
it
thing
out.
too.
It's so gross.
Like she even takes out lube and like puts it over the rim of the butthole, the back butthole. And the thing is too is that you're straight up watching like porn essentially. I mean, you're watching her like finger this hole, and the only reason Cronenberg gets away with it is because it's a back port for a video game. But all the implications and all the imagery is purely pornography. Like it's just
it's like the abdomen vagina from Videodrome.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's so. and he always makes a point to every time they go back into the world or they have to jack into another video game world or whatever, every single time he makes sure that he shows you that thing going into the bioport every time, because I just feel like
you have to see the fleshy little umbilical cord like basically like suction its way in and then get twisted in there and stuff.
Yeah,
it's like, dude,
and then there's parts where it gets like stuck. So they're pulling on it, and it just, it just gives you that feeling in your own body that you're like, oh my God, this isn't very uncomfortable. Just ugh. I don't know if I'd be buying this video game system. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. But they end up blasting a chunky hole through Willem Dafoe's neck.
Oh yeah.
Using the installation device that he used on Jude Law, and he gets a line before he dies too that I thought was pretty, which I thought was pretty funny. Which was she says something along the lines of like he's being very, like cliche because he's like betrayed them for the bounty, from the local crazy people, and she says, "Haven't you seen a movie before?" And then he says, "I like your script. I want to be in it."
Yeah,
and that's when he gets like his neck like blasted out, which then leads them to go see what Hungarian Bilbo is doing at an abandoned ski lodge. This movie's so weird.
It is the strangest film. Yeah, and once again, it's great because I think he does truly understand that it's like being in this video game world allows him to do any really bizarre idea that he has, as long as it somewhat works contextually. You can throw it onto the screen. And we're going everywhere from, like you said, like Ian Holmes in this like kind of secret agency or something like that, and then you go to the farm where they're like breeding the pods and working on the pods, and there's just so many weird different sets and avenues to this world.
Well, yeah, and what's funny is that technically the Ian Holmes stuff is supposed to be in the real world, as far as we know at this point in the film.
Right. Yeah.
But obviously that gets changed by the time we get to the end of the film, which we will get to.
Yeah.
But at this point, this stuff is weird, and we're not in even the game world yet. Like, we haven't even gone to the game world yet.
That's a good point. In our minds, we're just like straight up in reality here. So.
Yeah, but what's so interesting is that, as we're about to get into, we are going to get into the game world. And then when they come back to the real world from the game world, they're like, it's not actually that different. And it's actually fucking them up that the blurring of the virtual world and reality is becoming kind of like one and the same for them a little bit.
That was one thing I thought was
an important distinction.
Yeah, that was something I thought was really cool. Like just a kind of difference between the idea of like jacking in, kind of like with the Matrix. Whereas like, with the Matrix, they're fully aware of when they're in the Matrix. Whereas this like really blurs those lines and once again kind of becomes like disorienting in a way. And yeah, I did like that difference because it adds this kind of mysterious element and a little bit of horror in a way.
Well, yeah, and technically, I think that they beat Inception to the same idea of like the stuff that affects you in there, you can bring it out with you.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a really important distinction because like the moment where Jude Law like pauses the game and makes himself come out of the game is like when he plants the idea in his wife's mind and Marianne Cotillard comes back out and she still thinks that she's dreaming. He still thinks that he's gaming.
Right.
it's the same deal.
That's
which
sweet.
I thought was like pretty funny that Cronenberg did it in 1999.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea again of Bilbo performing surgery on like her gaming PC, and then it ports into you because like you're the power source, and she's like fingering his port and everything. And the transition scene of them going into the game is like this sort of like a layered matte shot where like he's looking at the ceiling and he looks down, and as he starts to look down, the room sort of like combines into the new room where they're in a gaming arcade or a video game store. And it's a very smooth transition, and he's so stunned by it. He's like, wow, it feels real. And Cronenberg, to his credit, shoots it all very absurdly with a he goes crazier a bit with the colors and the design work, but it's all still very tangible. It's all very practically done. A lot of the sets and stuff that he's doing, and some of the weird, again, like mutant farming and the factory where they make the game pods and stuff like that. The game world, it's very sort of like low budget sci-fi plastic, but it is convincing and tangible enough that you do understand how they start to lose the distinction between what we were previously watching. Because what we were previously watching was honestly in some ways just as ridiculous, that the game world and the real world blend together for you as a